Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club for the month of January 2024. Starting a new year here, and it's the future too. 2024 seems so future and weird to me. I'm old. I'm getting old. Anyway, it's the Kids Club, my favorite club because kids are the future. We were just speaking about the future, I just there's so much energy with kids comics going on right now, and this book is a great example of an energetic, exciting, thrilling book that I think everyone's going to really love. The book is Skip, and we are joined today by the author, Sarah Burgess. Hello, Sarah. How are you? Burgess. Did I? What did I do there?
Burgess. Yeah.
Burgess. You got it. Okay. I will have that right by the end of the show, just when it's over. Good morning, and how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. So I always start with the same question, and I like this question quite a bit, and it's why comics? Of all of the things you could be doing in your life, what is it about comics that is like, I have to do this? Because, comics are hard to make. They're very time consuming. They're lonely.
Yeah.
So why? Why this comics lifestyle?
I think it's actually a weird one. I think weirdly, my love for comics actually starts in animation. Like I'm really, really, really into animation. Always have been since I was a kid. Um, and I always remember thinking, even when I was like 6 and I got like my first how to animate book, I was like, this is too much work. I don't want to do this. But the idea, so I think it started with like drawing comics as like a way to draw animation without it being as time consuming because I don't have any patience for like 128 images per second kind of thing.
Right.
But then I went to uni and I studied comics and graphic novels, and I grew up with manga as well. And I'm just like, honestly, like, I'm just a really big fan of like the fact that you can tell a story like so creatively with comics. Like, I feel like you have such a there's such a flexibility in comics, which means that you can like express things that you can't there's things that you can do in comics that I don't think you can necessarily do with other mediums. It's like a really great mixture, in my opinion, of like the visuals that you get with movies and film, which are really amazing, because you have that like emotional impact, because it's so visual. But then the great thing about reading is that you can kind of like bring your own experience to it. And I feel like comics kind of like mixes the two together. So I feel like that's why for me, that's why I'm really passionate about like I don't know, the art
Yeah.
of comics. Yeah, I
I
don't know.
love that. I love that. You said you went to school for comics. Uh, where did you go to school? What was the program like?
Well, so I went in a place called Swindon, which if you're from the UK, it's like notoriously really dull there. It's like the place where ambition goes to die. But they happen to have yeah, like a program that was dedicated to comics and illustration. They called it sequential illustration.
Yeah.
Uh and I also like I just happened to live there. I was just really lucky. Like that's kind of I grew up in that area, and so I went to university there. But during that time, honestly, like I like now, I think there's like maybe three or four. Like if you think about the UK being like a really small country, there aren't that many. I don't know. I wouldn't say that there's that many places to go and study something so niche. But there's a lot more now, and it's a lot more focused. Whereas when I went, that was like probably the only place around where you could like study graphic novels and like telling a story sequentially and stuff like that. So I guess I kind of didn't have any choice at the time. But it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that because I definitely hear from a lot of people in the UK when we talk about their backgrounds that, oh, I studied fine art or I studied, something that is not, it's comics adjacent, but not actually comics, and
Yeah.
it's nice to hear from someone who, went to a comics program there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been really, really, really nerdy about comics. Like I feel like it's interesting because uh I've been on, I don't know, I've been in the scene like a really long time. Like this is like my first officially published graphic novel, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been like selling my own comics at conventions and stuff since I was like 12 or something, something crazy
Wow,
like that.
really? Wow, since
Yeah,
so
yeah,
young.
it's
That's
crazy.
really impressive.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's really like my mum was awesome and really encouraged. So my twin sister also like she's like way more accomplished than I am. She has like two published graphic novels out and we used to sell them together, but I guess it's just my mum was like really encouraging of us like drawing and so and I was very lucky to get involved in a community at the time that was just really small. So they really like nurture you. And I feel like that really um I don't know, just encouraged me to be very passionate and have a really healthy relationship with drawing and my art. Uh, and I think that's why I was like able to. Sorry, that I go off on tangent. Sorry, but it's like because I know there's lots of people who kind of like discovered comics later on in their lives. And come from maybe like a completely different background, like fine art and stuff. And I
Yeah.
think because I guess because our mum just really encouraged us from like a really young age. I think for me it's just slightly different, probably.
I
Yeah,
love that. I mean, thank your mom. That's amazing.
yeah.
Mom, if you're watching, good job. Two daughters and who both have published books. That's exciting stuff. Who is your sister?
Rebecca Burgess,
Okay.
she did a comic called How to Be Ace
Okay.
and a kids comic called Speak Up, and they're like way more popular than my comic. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, if you haven't, definitely I recommend them. They're really good, or I
Nice.
think they are. So.
Nice. Super nice. Super nice. So where did the idea for Skip come from? Where did this book? Because I don't think of the UK as having a giant double Dutch scene. Um, yeah,
No, I'm not sure. I don't know if double Dutch is really that big anywhere. I don't know. But it came, I think really it came from like a mixture of things. So honestly, like there was a song that I was really into that's about double Dutch, and that got me going down like a double Dutch rabbit hole. And I was like, "Ah, this sport is like really cool." Um, and there's that really cool Disney movie, Jump In, which is all about like a boy getting into double Dutch, which is very much like a female-led sport. Uh, and I really, really am into like hip hop, like really early hip hop from like the 80s and 90s. And it turns out that double Dutch was like there's like a crossover for people with that. Like people used to do because it's a street sport. It used to like people used to do double Dutch a lot at like hip hop parties and stuff. I just read about it. Uh, and then it's like a mix of that, and then I love, love sports dramas, and um, like I grew up with a lot of manga, and a lot of my favorite manga is like sports drama as well. And I was basically just like, I really want to do like a comic that's like inspired by like the manga sports dramas that I love, but something that is more aimed at like something that's a bit more femme and a bit more like feelings focused than
yeah,
like because typical kind of like sports drama manga is very like, gotta be the best kind of thing. And I was like, I really love like character driven stories that are super emotional. So I was like, I want to mix those two things together, and I want it to be double dutch because it's just like a really cool sport that nobody really knows about. So that was pretty pretty much, yeah, all of those things.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, do you don't jump rope yourself, I'm assuming?
No, I enjoy sports, but I'm like such a nerd. I'm not like athletic or good at anything, or so no. But I really enjoy watching it. Like I've watched so many. Like just now, if you go on my Instagram, like right now, there's like a thing that I found where there's like a clip from like I don't know, there's like a Japanese double dutch tournament going on right now, and somebody's done this like incredible
Mm,
speed run, which is like one of the sections of like a double dutch sport. Anyway, it's just so cool. Like it's
mm.
so awesome to watch. It's like really creative, and really it's a bit like, I guess I would akin it to like ice skating or gymnastics, where there's like this creative element to it. But it's also, you have to be super athletic and amazing to pull it off, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, ice skating and gymnastics are, I mean, almost I mean, this is too wrong of a word, but almost slavery for kids, right? Like you get
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
young girls who are 6, and their mom puts them into the gymnastics path, and that's all those girls are ever able to do for like the next 10 years, uh
Yeah.
kind of scary. Whereas in my mind, double dutch is always just it's to me it's always been a street sport, and always, at least in America, it's always been the kind of thing that is an urban thing too.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I think it is both, like for sure. Like I think you definitely get tournaments and stuff, but I think that's the great thing about it, is that it's also just generally just a thing that people just do in the streets for fun, and like it's like a nice mix of both.
yeah. So
Yeah.
in
Mm.
putting together the book, did you pitch it first, or did you start drawing? Like how did it work for you?
I I've had this idea for like so long. I think like since 2016, it's been in my mind. It was on my mind, and I drew some like doodles first. Like the story has changed a lot since when I kind of first thought about it. It was a very different story. Like I feel like the themes are always the same though. I always wanted to because in double dutch, there's like this like musical element. I always wanted to do something about somebody who's very shy and not very good at communication. And I always had this idea, which made it into the final thing, but like this idea about almost like a buddy story where like one person is very shy and the other person like invites them into this really crazy world, and then that person, it's like the main character is really um like really nice but almost too passive, and it's like this idea that actually not being able to communicate actually makes them quite passive aggressive, because there's a moment in the current book where the main character Jay, they kind of like diss
Hmm.
like their best friend out, like through like a rhyme, which is horrible. But like I was like, oh, that's something that I just think is a really good lesson in like there are better ways to communicate, or if you're not very good at communication, this is how like these things can seep out. And I was like, that would be really cool in like a sports
Yeah.
drama thing. So that was always there, but the reasons were very different. And then over the years, I was just like I don't know, I was just working on other things, and I kind of felt like it needed full time and attention. And then it just got to the point in my career where I just wanted to focus properly on comics and maybe trying to get a graphic novel like published. And then I just thought this would actually be a really good idea to like give full, like I said, like full time and attention to. So then I kind of fleshed it out more as a thing and just pitched it to my agent, who's really
Okay.
awesome. And then yeah, they helped me develop it for the publisher. And yeah, I feel like the rest is is history.
That's actually that's interesting because I don't know that I've ever spoken to someone who said that their agent helped them develop the work. What was that process like?
So so it's like I came up with the concept and I drew some like preview pages. So the first like 16 pages I drew like maybe 3 years before I drew the rest of the comic. And then sorry, what were you gonna
No, I said that's interesting. Yeah,
uh
the first chunk you drew before. That's yeah. Go on. I'm listening.
sorry. And yeah, and then I pitched the idea to a literary agent because I don't know, I just didn't know any other way to get into the publishing industry. I was just like, I just have to pitch this story to people. And then I went through like a number of people, and then Jess Perry is my agent, and they were, yeah, just very excited about it. And then they got me to write an entire script. So rather than drawing it, I wrote a script for the whole thing and sent it to them. And then they kind of, the way that they got involved, where they were like, I think it would be a little bit better if, say, I don't know, the characters were more fleshed out here, or there,
Mhm.
for example. So that's the way in which I would say we work together to just make it more pitchable
Yeah.
uh, to a publisher. Like I've never done this before, so I think it was good. Like for me, I'm very I was and am very open to that feedback because I've only ever made comics like for online or to like sell it, you know. So I'm like, I don't know what sells or what a publisher would like. So I'm very open to feedback. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes a
Uh,
lot of sense. I was a little surprised to see this come out of Andrews McMeel, and the reason is because they don't really seem like they do a lot of original graphic novels. Mostly, what Andrews McMeel publishes is stuff that is already as a strip, as like a,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then they sort of do bigger collections of those strips. Big Nate and things like that are the kinds of things I'm thinking
yeah,
of.
yeah,
And so it's
totally.
not really, it's pretty atypical for them to do an original graphic novel like this. Did you did you get any feedback from them about why they wanted to publish this, or
I like don't quote me on this because it was a long time ago. Like the publishing process is so long that
sure?
like this was like 2 years ago that they were like, yeah, let's do this. But I'm pretty sure like they want to start doing more stuff like this.
Uh-huh.
I feel very, very lucky that they were like, your story is, we want to publish this.
Yeah.
But I believe because the editor that I worked with, she had like just come in at the time, and I think this may or may not, or there might be things before this that have been published, but I think they want to start doing more like sort of, yeah, like kind of like you say, like original from
Yeah.
scratch stories like this. I'm pretty sure I remember them saying that, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's more stuff coming
Yeah.
out that's similar.
Yeah.
But also don't take that as word because it was such a long time ago. But I'm pretty sure.
We,
Yeah.
it's not. Don't quote me though, because this is an interview, a live interview. It's all.
Yeah.
All right. So, So you did a script. Did you script out the entire book at that point?
Yeah, I did it from start to finish. But I'm no good. Like I had to thumbnail the whole thing before I then put it in script form. It's just easier for like editors to read in script form, but I'm like super visual in my head. Like all
Yeah.
of my thumbnails are just like proper like scribbly.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can think about a story is visually. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a really long process for me. It's like having to figure out the story and have the narrative make sense. Yeah, but I did write it out in a script
So,
eventually.
but so let me make sure that I'm with you here. You did your thumbnails first, or concurrently with writing the script?
You know, I did my thumbnails first,
Yeah,
and then wrote the script out like as per the thumbnails.
I see. Okay,
Uh, if I had it my way, I probably would like. I get that it's just not like it would be hard for an editor to look at that and understand it, but I think if I had it my way, I would just send people like just scribbles of an entire graphic
sure,
novel.
sure. Sure. And some people do work like that. I mean, that's the great thing
Yeah,
about comics is that there's multiple different ways to do it, and all of them are valid.
yeah, it's
Uh,
cool.
what? So was it difficult for you to go from if you were publishing comics to sell at conventions and stuff? I'm assuming that kind of the longest thing you were doing was, I don't know, 16, 20 pages, probably something along those lines? Or were you working on longer stuff already at that point?
I was working on longer stuff. I was I don't know if I am now. Well, no, yeah, I guess I am now. Like, so I've been drawing web comics for like forever. Uh, and before this graphic novel, I had a webcomic that was like, when it ended, it was like 900 pages.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
pretty, and then the one before that was like 500 pages. So I'm pretty used to doing like long form.
Okay.
Uh, but you know, I couldn't like sell those. I mean, that's why I kind of um decided to go down the publishing route. Like, it sounds really weird, but it's just like when I was doing like those web comics, I was at university and I had the time to do that. And then it's like, you know, you have to grow up and be an adult and pay the rent and and it's not so much about the money for me, it's about the time. Like I as an adult now, I can't really like afford to uh print those comics out and sell them anymore. I just like unfortunately just don't have the money to put that kind of time in. And so weirdly, that's why I wanted to go into the publishing industry, is more just so that I can get given the time to be able to
Sure.
like print a story and then have them like actually print it so that I can like put it out there to people. Like I really admire people who can like go to conventions and can afford to somehow like pay as much as it costs to go to a convention and print the comics and make up those costs and like make it work. It's like for me, it was just like a really expensive hobby that I just couldn't upkeep anymore. But like I
Yeah.
still draw webcomics. Like I currently draw a webcomic that's I mean, I guess it's weird because I don't feel like I'm very popular, but it's got like 4,000 followers on. I think it's popular on the website that it's hosted on.
Uh-huh.
Uh, that's doing pretty well. And but anyway, yeah, I'm like used to drawing long form comics for sure.
Okay.
So this wasn't like
Wasn't a
uh
challenge to do to come up with a book. Okay.
no,
Though
if
I
anything,
imagine, I
it
mean,
was
imagine the difference between, and tell me if I'm wrong here, that with web comics, you're typically uploading them in 3 to 5 page chunks. Yeah. right?
Yeah, I took
You're not drawing
yeah.
248 pages and then
Yeah.
uploading it, right? You're doing it as you go. So
Yeah.
was that a challenge for you to go from kind of it's coming out and the story as you're telling the story versus you've got to tell the whole thing first?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, I think that was like the biggest challenge. Um, like I think if anything, it was quite hard with Skip. It's like you have to limit the pages. So I think it like I wish it could have been longer. Like if anything, I had to cut that down. So that was also challenging, like having to edit things. And also for me, I really like because I grew up with manga. I really like doing like very slow pacing in my stories, and so that was a challenge with Skip was like because of like the limit of pages, I had to uh do more like 10 or 6 panels to a page as opposed to like I really like sticking to like 4 or 5. Um and then also yeah, like you said like with the webcomic it's like you get like instant feedback like I wouldn't say for me that it influences where the story goes, but I would say it definitely like motivates me when people are like really excited about they really want the next update or whatever. That's like that gives you like a massive motivation and it really like keeps you going. And it was so weird for me to like draw a comic and have to keep it a secret and not tell anybody and just draw it. And like I have no idea what people are gonna think about this until it,
Sure.
like, comes out, like, 2 years later. It's so odd. Like, it was definitely a really weird feeling, like, just drawing this comic and being like, "But that's it." It was really cool, though. I really enjoyed it. It was just, like, a really different kind of motivation. Like, my motivation had to come from a different place, and,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really interesting. It was
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I mean,
that feedback is weird.
historically, I mean, up until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, almost all
Yeah.
comics were done with some level of serialization baked into them. Even manga. I mean, manga is printed
Yeah.
kind of in 8 to 16 page chunks as a serial in the big anthology books, and then the most popular ones get put together in a regular book.
Yeah,
Certainly,
yeah.
American comics are all serialized first. Even in the British, you have weekly comics. Is
Yeah.
is your tradition there? And so, I think I agree with you that I think that having that feedback from the audience and also having the deadline that you've always got a deadline, like that's what keeps people making comics in a lot of cases. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
always
true.
impressed by people who can do an entire book and focus on an entire book and without that feedback, without that, I think that's amazing that you able to do that. um when so you if you did your thumbnails first, so did you write yourself an outline? Did you have anything going in before you did the thumbnails, or did you just start making a comic?
Mm, I I did start with an outline. Um, it was very I mean, that was another really weird thing about this is because again, because, like, the way that I normally work is I think because I come from, like, a webcomic background, um, so, like, for me, with, like, all of my stories, that there's always, like, what do you call it? Like a foundation. So there's always, like, a beginning, middle, and end. Like, I know how all of my comics are going to end, even the web comics.
Yeah.
Like, I think personally, like advice that I would give other people who are doing web comics is like know the ending because it's never good when you don't actually know where you're going with the story and then it just like trails off and then you're like shit, I don't know what to
Mhm.
do. uh, but um, yeah, so I had like a fundamental idea of like the themes and like the ideas that I wanted to portray in this comic. But it's weird because usually for me, I tend to like the niggly bits, the details. I tend to like um I wouldn't say that I improvise them, but it's like I kind of I don't know, like per chapter, it's like I'll focus just on that chapter. I won't necessarily think ahead as much. Like I'll have
Sure.
like major plot points, but like the in-betweens and the dialogue,
Uh-huh.
I just kind of I like to keep that a bit more spontaneous. Like
Yep.
that's just very important to me to do it that way. So it was really weird with this comic to like have to plan everything out from start to finish without because usually it's like I'll do like I don't know like 10 pages and then draw those 10 pages and then I'll plan out the next 10 pages. So it was weird to have to plan everything out all at once from start to finish and then draw it from start to finish. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, no,
It
it
was
makes
weird.
a tremendous amount of sense. As I say, there's 1,000 different ways to make a comic, and that is for sure one of them. How did your how did the editorial process work though at that point? If you were already drawing thumbnails and you had basically the bones of the comic laid out, you wrote up a script, you gave the script to your editor, and the editor said, I want you to change this. So, how did that work when you already had your thumbnails laid out?
Just my thumbnails are really rough.
Uh-huh.
So that's fine. Like I basically gave the script to the editor and then yeah, there were like things that we had to change, like the big stickler was the UK dialogue.
Mm, mm,
uh this book is like super American compared to how it was originally written. There's loads of words in there that had to change because my editor was like, people are not going to understand this dialogue. Uh, so that was easy to change because it's just like the writing,
yeah.
and there were a couple of um, you know, like visual things that had to change, but mostly it was fine. It wasn't actually there weren't that many changes that needed to be made, and because it's in the thumbnailing stage, like for me, those things are so sketchy. It's quite easy to edit those things, and it's all done. I do it all digitally because
Okay.
it's just like a lot cheaper to do that. Yeah, so it's very easy to change that stuff. And then I like inked it when it was all um, you know, like when the editor like okayed the whole thing. Um, and then I
So,
did have
so
to make a couple of changes on top of that, but yeah,
okay,
it's all
but
fine.
not any sort of substantial or structural changes, just small little
Yeah.
bits here and there. A 4-page sequence, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, like really, really small things. I would say like I was very lucky because Andrew McNeil are very like they were very flexible with me. I remember before they kind of acquired the book, they were like, we want you to kind of mostly do your own thing. I would say I was given a lot of freedom. Like I hear that for other people, uh, like just depending on who you're working with, like sometimes it's a lot more rigid. So I think I was probably given a lot of freedom to kind of do what I wanted to a degree. Like not entirely, but like probably a lot more freedom than some people have experienced, I
Yeah,
imagine. I don't know though. So,
yeah. How long did your original thumbnails take you to do?
oh, not long. Like I was given like 9 months to do the entire thing from start to finish. So I had to be really quick. So it must have taken about a month or 2 months or something. Um, yeah, I've like poured all my time into it. I think because I have a day job as well. I worked like evenings and weekends as well to get the whole thing finished.
Yeah. But you were still able to do, I mean, I guess that probably works out to 4 to 5 pages a day in thumbnails. Is that right?
Yeah, I think at first I was like aiming for like, yeah, like one chapter a week or
Hmm.
something like that. Like I did it like that. And then with pages, I was definitely like when I was inking and stuff, I was doing like 3 to 5 pages
Ooh,
a day, I
wow,
believe. Yeah, it
wow,
was crazy. Yeah, it was a
wow.
crazy time.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. There's really no kind of obvious chapter breaks here. I mean, obviously when I read the story, I can go, oh, that's a chapter, but you don't have sort of the formal this is chapter 1, this is chapter 2 kind of
Mm.
stuff in here. Uh so when you were doing your layouts and thinking of it in terms of chapters, was it, I guess what I'm asking is, was it clear that there were chapters then, or was it just all an organic process to make it? Did that make sense as a question? I don't know if that made
Yeah,
sense. Okay.
no, it does make sense. Yeah, I would say for me, it was like so there were clear chapters. Like I have a notebook with the chapters in,
Yeah.
but the way that I work is really organic, so it's like both. Like for me, with all of my comics, like if you read my web comics, it's like a chapter can be anywhere from like 15 pages to like 60 pages.
Sure.
The way that I tend to work is like chapters just equal like plot points in a story. So I imagine that's why in Skip it feels like it's just a one long continuation because
Yeah.
that's generally how I work. But like when I was planning it out, I was like, okay, this happens and then this happens. It's like I break it up into like scenes, and so it feels like there's lots of different chapters.
How many chapters do on your end is the book, if that makes sense?
I can't remember, maybe like 12, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Nice.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I think so. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
So 20 pages a chapter, give or take, something along those lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Um,
the shortest chapter is like near the end when there's like a little montage when
yeah.
they're not friends
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. So you say working all digitally. Um, your thumbnails. So I try that. Let me rephrase that. Do you do thumbnails and then do you do a formal pencil stage, or are you, when you're inking, are you basically inking over your thumbnails?
I'm basically inking over my thumbnails, yeah.
Nice.
I
Okay.
think like people will notice. I think it's like both, like depending on how you feel about it, it's like the good thing about my work or the really bad thing about my work that people don't like, but it's very loose art artwork. It's very like freed up. That's how I like to do it.
Well, I
So
mean,
I
that's what I
tend
like. I mean,
to,
that's very much what I like about it. Is I
oh,
like
that's nice.
the I like the fluidity of it. You know, yeah, which I don't think, I think that some people can render away a lot of the beautiful strengths of their work. Because they can overthink it and then redraw it 8 times, and then the looseness of gesture, particularly for something like with jump rope, right? You need a certain amount of fluidity there. I use fluidity twice now, but yes, I mean, I think that's it.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
okay. So let me, and then your lettering, do you do the lettering before or after your inking, or at the same
Um,
time?
I I do it at the same time, yeah. I'm like a
Okay.
really, really big fan of Will
Mhm,
Eisner.
mhm.
Uh, and You guys would know who Will Eisner is, so I don't have to explain. That's
I know
good.
who Will Eisner is. Yes.
Yeah,
The,
like in the UK,
the
people
kids may not,
don't really
because
know.
he was from the 1940s. He's a
Yeah,
very, 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 very famous comic artist who did
in
comics in
America.
the 1940s in America. Yeah.
Yeah, he's famous in America. He's not really well known in the UK. But so I really love Will Eisner. Like he is a big reason why a lot of my work looks the way that it is, like the way that I don't really draw panels and everything's very fluid is he's definitely an influence, as well as like animation. But it's the same with font. Uh so yeah, everything was like handwritten, and I am a very big, like that's something I feel very strongly about. Like that's kind of a big thing in my artwork, and that's very much inspired. I really love how in Will Eisner's comics how he will write like words in a very particular way to like emphasize how somebody might be feeling. Like he'll use capital font and sometimes he won't. Like there's no real standard, and I feel like that makes things more expressive. And I definitely like just absolutely adopted that. So I do my I tend to do my writing at the same time as I do the artwork, because sometimes the font is like built in, or the speech bubbles are very much built into the comic rather than done over the top. Uh, that's pretty intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you use the word font, but there's not a font involved
It's
here. Yeah.
not,
This
yeah.
is all handwritten. Yeah. That's no, I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty obvious when you look at the book that it's all hand lettered, but only because you use the word font that I brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. But
Yeah, no,
yeah.
no, it's good. So yeah, so I mean, it sounds like you've got a relatively streamlined process where your thumbnails and your pencils are basically the same stage, and then your inking and your lettering is basically the same stage. Uh,
Yeah.
where so normally someone would break that into four different things, but you're just doing it in two passes essentially.
Yeah. And then coloring as
Yeah,
well, I guess, is like a separate thing.
yeah.
But yeah.
So
Uh,
the inking and okay, so you said that your thumbnails took you about a month. The inking and lettering then was
mm, that took a lot longer, obviously, because it has to look decent. That took like the majority of the time. So that
yeah.
probably took about like 4 or 5 months or something, and then it took about 2 months to like color the whole thing. And I had like
Interesting.
9 months to do it in. So yeah, I had to break it all down uh to kind of meet the deadline that I had. So yeah.
When you did your web comics, were they black and white or were they color?
Uh, so the first, they're kind of the mostly in color. Like I really struggle with black and white.
Uh-huh.
I'm definitely a lot better with color. So I've always kind of done color. But my first webcomic, which is called Blake Sinclair, was like it was technically in color, but it was kind of like a two-tone thing.
Yeah.
So it was like yellowy colors because it's set in the summer, and then all the characters are kind of like grayscale, and that was like that was all done like back in the day before it was easy to do digital things, and it was like all done in gouache. So and like ink, like the nib stuff,
Yeah.
traditional, very traditional. uh and then the webcomic that I do at the moment is like it's all done in, yeah, it's all like full color. Uh but actually quite easy. I really like working in color. I think it's a really great way to like add to moods, and my favorite thing is like doing like changing the colors slightly depending on like the time of day and stuff like that. I'm just really interested in color theory, to be honest. Like it's really cool. So
I really like the kind of the pastel and watercolor ish nature of the coloring that you have here. Is
oh,
that because that when it comes to the technical parts of digital comics making, I don't know. Is that like a filter or something, that sort of watercolor technique that you have here?
yeah, that was a filter that I made because I wanted it to look like that. Uh, I wanted to give it like just some texture, like but like I'm not gonna lie, like basically this was designed like the coloring style and the art style is very much designed for like how quickly I had to make it. So it's like because I was given like 9 months to do like 250 pages of a comic, like not a lot of time for me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a style that hopefully will work with that, so it will look good, but I can also be a bit more. I can do it quickly, but hopefully it will look good. So that's why intentionally it looks very like blotchy, I guess. I know that's weird, but it's very, yeah, it is like intentional, and that's so the lines in this book, like if you look at my other work, the lines are not so thick, but I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to do like these really thick black outlines so that the kind of the texture and the pastels would like just I just feel like they would work a lot better if it had like I just wanted that mix of like really thick black line with yeah, like very quick watercolor. And it was like this idea of, again, it's all kind of designed so that I could do it quickly, but hopefully it looks okay.
Yeah, no, no,
I
very
just
much.
want
Look, I we wouldn't have picked it as the kids' book of the month if I didn't think it looked okay. So you can assure yourself on that point that you did well. Yeah, yeah. No, I like it. I like it quite a bit. Um, what was I going to ask here? Oh, I just noticed that the chapter headers too. I said there weren't, and there are some in here. They're just very small. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I had to
yeah.
put them in at the
Um,
end. Yeah.
one of the things that a reasonable amount of artists who are doing comics do is they have like a mirror nearby them, and so when they need to draw, like how does someone look, that they can look at themselves in the mirror and try to draw themselves essentially. But I'm wondering, because there's so much action in the sport of the comic, um what were your resources there? Because I assume you're not
Um,
setting up a rope in your studio that you're spinning.
no, I did a lot of research. Um I had so many almost like a mood board or something, or like just tabs, like kind of like bookmarks available of like documentaries and images and news articles about Double Dutch, and then I would like research the moves and look at like films and then like pause the film and then draw what people were doing and stuff to try and get accurate things. And then some of it I would make up a little bit, but
Yeah.
uh yeah, I basically just did a lot of research about what it all looks like, and um I also did just general research about the sport before drawing it, and we tried to swing in some like facts about how the sport works and how tournaments work.
Sure.
Um, yeah.
I also feel like there's at least some points, like when there's big long sequences of jumping, that you're a little less concerned about physics at that point and more
Yep.
about
Yeah.
gesture, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
I'm a really big fan of gesture. Yeah. Um, one of my other favorite artists is Glenn Keane, who is like the character. designer for not anymore, but he was the character designer for Disney. So he like came up with The Little Mermaid, and he's
Mm.
like the reason why all animation in America looks like it does now, really. And his actual drawings, like his sketches, are all like very gestural, and that was a very big. I think that just gesture is like a really big thing for me, and I'm definitely a big fan of like exaggerating body language and movement.
Yep.
I don't mind like bending the rules on that.
Yep.
If it like I'm definitely somebody who's more like make it look really expressive over making it accurate.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
That's
So I
good. It's one of the
definitely
it's one of the strengths of comics. So I think it's
yeah.
a really good call. How actively are you thinking about things like page turns, um, and sort of the formalistic parts of comics? You know, the the I goes in a Z. You have to have something at the end of the page that makes you want to turn the page, because I get the sense in talking to you that that you're less formal about it and much more instinctual. Is that a correct assumption?
Mm, I think so, yeah. Like I definitely think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'm very, very interested in. Like I love that about comics. But I definitely would say I'm not somebody, I've never really been somebody who like follows the typical guidelines that people teach you about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've learned it and I know it, but I just like yeah, I would say like I'm very definitely much more instinctual about it. But it's not that it's like not something that I'm interested in though. I think it's just that I want to play around with it. Like I think that's why I really like Will Eisner's work. I feel like he really plays around with it. Uh, and that's just something that I've always wanted to do. Like I think that's why I love comics so much. Like you can play around with that stuff if you want to. Like I really love it when comic artists make use that you have these kind of, you have panels, but you don't always have to have panels, and like
Mm-hmm.
you can have the eye just follow something. I think with my comics, I'm a big fan of like if you read it quickly, that's a good thing. I
Yep.
think for me, I would rather people read it quickly and it's easy to read. I think I want people to get caught up in it uh in that way. So yeah, I don't know, it's weird. I definitely do think about like the layouts and pacing and timing is like really important to me, but I don't necessarily follow the set rules that are really good though. They're really good. I probably should follow those rules a bit more.
No, I mean, look, I will say, and I think I've already said this 3 times tonight. There are no rules in comics. The only rule is it a good comic, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
so,
That's how I feel about it.
knowing the rules is important, right? Like knowing
Yeah,
that I don't know that you shouldn't, turn 180 degrees in one panel, for example, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
that's just like a sort of basic storytelling thing,
Yeah,
but other than that, I don't think that there are rules. I think that the emotional content of, I mean, I can flip to any given, I can hold something up to the camera and it'll look weird though, but like how they're having a conversation and it's small panels and then they get bigger as their emotions are getting bigger, right? Like it comes across very clearly here in the storytelling. So, and that like from a rule point of view, that's the wrong way to do it. But clearly, it works on the page, right? And that's what's important is,
yeah,
does it work? So
yeah, yeah. I do think it depends. It's like I love like this is what I love about comics as well. Is like because I think also for me, because I grew up with manga, and manga definitely like is a well, especially with I guess again it depends what kind of manga you're reading, but I read a lot of like cheesy ass shoujo stuff,
Right.
which is
Right.
like manga for girls,
Right.
and they're all about like, you know, the bigger the emotions get, the bigger the panels get. It's
Right.
all very spacious, I would say. And then you have French comics, which I love because they'll have like 20 panels in a story, and it's amazing. Like they're able to tell that really beautifully. Like the way they do it is so creative, and I find that fascinating. Like depending on like different countries have different styles of storytelling, and equally like there are comics that are like super like I know that my style is very fluid, but I love that you get comics that are really rigid as
Yep.
well, and equally it's like you're saying, it's like they do the same job but just like in a different way, and it's
Yep.
amazing. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do too. I do too. Um, did Jay and Bia both appear in your head at the same time, or was one of them first? Did you like the
Hmm.
character building part of that? Was that how did it come across for you?
I think they were both at the same time as a dynamic.
Hmm.
I think the other characters came later. Uh, but I mean, they're very, I think, yeah, they definitely came together because I think that it's really about their dynamic, and they're very inspired by me when I was a kid, and then like one of my best friends when I was a kid, and we had a really intense relationship like that,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
which really felt like because like the pitch for this story was like a platonic love story because I feel like you have really intense relationships in comics, but they're or sorry, in stories in general, but they're often like romantic. But it's like you can have
Sure.
friendships like that are
Yep.
like verging on romantic. Like I
Yep.
feel like that relationship with my best friend when I was a kid was romantic. We just didn't see it that way at the
Yeah.
time, but it felt like that. And that was kind of a big thing. I wanted to kind of talk about how important, or I wanted to do a story, especially for kids, because I think friendships are like really important when you're a kid and really formative. And it's really difficult when you like become really close with somebody, but then um your lives like you change. Like you know, when you like when you're growing up, you change so much. Like so much can change in just like a month, you know?
Yeah.
And so friendships can change a lot, and it's like navigating that. Uh, I think that's what the story is about, really, is like navigating two people who, in theory, are very, very different, but can have a really good friendship or relationship with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so too. I think you did a really good job of capturing that, and yeah, I think this is just it's a really strong book. You know, both the action, but also emotionally. I mean, I I felt these characters. You know, I'm certainly not a girl who plays a jump rope, but I but I felt myself, you know, in that place. So so good on you, good on you. Um, let's wrap it up. I think. Uh, and I always kind of end with you know the same two places as well. The first one's really easy. Is there something else you'd like to plug? Do you have something else coming up soon? You maybe you can't talk about it. I don't know. What's your next book? Do you have any idea?
I think there are things that I can't talk about, but I do have an ongoing webcomic that you
Mm-hmm.
can read for free online. It's called
Is that
Prince.
adult oriented or kid oriented?
It's aimed at like you can be say 13 and up, so it is kind of kid orientated, but not like 8 to 10, but like
Right.
if you're like a young teenager, you can read
Yeah.
it. It's like kid friendly in that way. I'd say it's like PG? Is
Okay.
PG a thing? PG to 13? That's a thing for you guys,
PG's the
isn't it?
thing. Yeah. Parental guidance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that yeah, it is it's not like super adult. But I think if you were like 8, you maybe it would go over your head, but yeah, it's a really fun webcomic. It's called Princess Beast
Princess
and
Beast. Uh-huh.
Princess Beast, and it's like a fantasy comic about like a fantasy slash romance comic about a girl who sees it's like set in a fantasy world and she sees herself as a beast, and it's like a metaphor for like insecurities and anxieties, but it's very fun and silly and like a love letter to like all the comics that I grew up with when I was a kid. So
Nice.
that's what it's about.
Nice. And but you are working on other books that will be books at some point. We just can't talk about them yet.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know about the future of those things, but I'm definitely working on stuff. So
Yeah. Nice. Well, I mean, as I said, I really like this, so I definitely want to see more of your work come out. Was there a conscious decision on your part for this to be a kid's graphic novel, or were you just writing a story and it happened to work out to be a kid's book?
I would say yeah, I was writing the story and then it just seems right for it to be like a kid's book.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's a kid's book. I think I
Were
want
there
to.
were there any changes that had to get made? No.
No, it just fits the right. I think generally I write for young. I'm writing for younger audiences, and I think just the story because it's like I think just because of the themes of friendship and communication, it's just the right age group
Yeah.
for it. Really, yeah,
Yeah,
it works
very
well.
much so, very much so. All right, well, and then the place I will wrap this up is, I think we mentioned before that we're at like 9 years of the graphic novel clubs. We have two of these every month, one aimed at adults, one aimed at kids, and so this is a pretty long series of interviews with creators, and as a result, we get watched by people who want to make comics. And what I hear a lot of times from people are, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start. I don't know how to make. I know I want to do this. I know I can do this, but I don't know. So, if you were to give a piece of advice to a young 16-year-old, let's say, who wants to make comics but just isn't quite sure what to do, what might that piece of advice be? And it can be something, sort of practical and physical. It can be something emotional. It can be something spiritual. What would that piece of advice be?
I would say, mm, this is really boring, but draw draw every day, and um, don't worry about like don't worry about making mistakes. Like, don't, especially now, I think with social media, it's so easy to see what other people are doing and compare yourself to those people. I would say try not to worry about that, and this is why drawing every day really helps. And put your work out there regardless, and just uh keep yeah, I don't know, like that's how I did it. Keep creating
Yeah.
regardless of what people think, and just do it. And also it's okay to like copy what other people are doing at first, like if that's where you want to begin. Like I did that. Like I was drawing comics at 16 that were like complete rip-offs of Dragon Ball Z. But you got to start somewhere, you
Yeah,
know, and then but it's like if you don't just start, then you'll never go anywhere. I would say that the best thing you can do is like try and develop a really good relationship with your art where you just enjoy doing it at your core, and you'll go super far that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. I really like that a lot. I want to thank you for the time that you spent with us today. This has been a really
Thank
fun
you.
conversation, and I really like your approach towards making comics. It seems really healthy and really positive. So
Thank
uh,
you.
yeah, and let's once more let's thank your mom again, because I very
Yeah.
clearly very clearly that had something to do with it. So good job, Sarah's
Yeah.
mom. Good job. Um, yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, hang on a second. Don't go away. I got to do a little bit of housekeeping here. So we're gonna push you off to the side, and we're gonna put me on a one, and I'm gonna talk for a couple minutes here. And I'm gonna say, hey, you are sitting at home, and you want to read a comic, and you don't know what to read because there's so many things you could read. Well, let me tell you, Skip is a really good comic. It's both action packed because it is a sports comic about jump rope and double dutch, but it's also very much an emotional story about friendship, that's really strong and beautiful in the way that it does it. So I absolutely recommend this book, and I think that you will love it and adore it yourself. So go and get one. There's probably a link some if you're watching this after the show. There's almost certainly a button you can buy it, and then there's a thing running at the bottom of the screen that says you can buy it from us that way too. Or you can buy it from your local store too. But if you buy it from us, then you're supporting these kind of things. So that's the thing. Um, uh, as I didn't actually say it right now, but in January we have it's been every Sunday this month, and so next week is our adult graphic novel club. We're interviewing John Allison and Max Sarin about this great comic, The Great British Bump Off, which is basically a murder mystery set at the Great British Baking Show, and it's really funny and smart and wonderful. Next month's kid book, which will be roughly a month from now, is Kay is in Trouble by Gary Clement. And it's basically it's a Kafka story. Ask your parents who Kafka is, but it's a Kafka story for kids. And I think you're really, really going to like it. And your parents are going to really like it too. And then our adult club next month is a really big one. Again, you kids probably won't know who the heck I'm talking about here, but we are interviewing Ai Weiwei with his new memoir Zodiac, where he talks about his life and all of the things that impacted him as an artist, told through the Chinese zodiac. And I think it's really kind of an immaculate piece of work that I think you're really going to like that. So we'll be talking to him next month, which could not excite me more. See, your parents will be really excited by that one too. That's the next couple of shows that are coming up. I want to make a couple thank yous. I want to thank Jordan, our producer, who does all the stuff that you don't get to see at home. But the show wouldn't run without him. So thank you, Jordan. I want to thank Ben for running the show, doing the cameras, blah, 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 all this great stuff. You're the best, buddy. I want to thank my staff. I want to thank Zoe, Kat, and Katie, and Max for being the best staff that a comic shop can have and giving me the freedom and ability to sit and talk to you guys and talk to cartoonists. I would not be able to spend this amount of time doing this if it wasn't for them, helping run the store. So thank you guys, because it's really important. I would like to thank all of the viewers at home. I would like to thank all the members of the club. We could not do this without you. So please consider joining the club if you find any of this interesting or the books that we're selecting interesting. And above all else, I need to thank creators, because if it wasn't for creators like Sarah right over here, put her back on the screen. There you go. If it wasn't for creators like Sarah, we couldn't do this. I could not sell comic books I don't make them. I don't have those skills, but Sarah does, and makes exciting, thrilling comics. So thank you, Sarah, and once again, thank you, Sarah's mom, for letting us do this. That's what I got. Thank you for your time, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so nice.
It's my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure. I'll see you for a second at the end of the show, but otherwise, we're going to leave it there, and we'll talk to you all, well, next week, but in a month for the next Kids Club. Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of the Graphic Novel of the Month Club. If you enjoyed what you were watching, please subscribe and hit that bell up in the top corner. If you enjoyed the books that we're talking about and the creators that we're talking to, every month we pick a brand new book. The staff votes on it. It's a program that helps keep our store alive, and we'd love to have you as a member. You'll get a new book every month. Just follow that URL at the bottom of the screen.